Hey everyone, welcome to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Jenna Cottrell alongside. I'm Dan Fetes. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's windy here, it's sunny, it feels like football weather as the Bills just wrapped up their Wednesday practice as they're gearing up for the season opener against Pittsburgh on Sunday. Jenna, we got to talk to the coordinators today.
Yeah.
And what was your first big takeaway from the defensive side with Leslie Frazier?
Yeah, first of all, Leslie Frazier, just a wealth of knowledge as we get into it. The wisdom that he has is fantastic. And then secondly, he just talked about how much more prepared he feels like this team is defensively heading into last year. Because let's remember, last year there weren't any OTAs, there weren't any mini camps, there really wasn't no preseason games. And that is something that has been huge for this team to have. Look, every other team, obviously, in the NFL has also had that. But even Micah Hyde talked about that time on task. And another big thing for them, tackling has been a huge emphasis, Leslie Frazier has said. And that's something that seems so simple.
Fundamental.
So fundamental. It's
like Sean McDermott.
Yes, but we know Sean McDermott, a disciplined guy. But when you think about it, that tackling, I mean, we've seen the Bills' defense struggle to stop the run. Tackling is a big piece of that. This year, that's something they have been focusing on, something you're going to continue focus on.
Absolutely.
But that's a huge thing moving forward.
Well, and this was a defense that, let's not forget, struggled out of the gate. Now, NFL defenses struggled across the league last year. Look, we know the way it was officiated. So many more points, no crowd noise. We'll get into that in a second. But I just think this is huge there was a lot of pressure put on the Bills' offense last year to score 30-plus points per game because of how poor the Bills' defense was at times.
Correct.
They seemed to get it out at the right times, and we kept asking them. I remember at the beginning of the year being like, what's going on with the defense? They all kept saying, like, just wait.
Yeah.
They kept being like, and they did play better at the end of the year.
They did.
But it's starting to pick up where that needs to be.
Yeah.
And one of the guys that does need to pick up, maybe where he left off, or maybe where he left off in 2019, in all reality, is, Jenna, you asked Leslie Frazier if there was a breakout player that he could predict for this season.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him because we talk so much to these guys, but we've had the preseason to go through. As we enter the regular season, I asked, in your opinion, is there a guy that comes to mind that you think can have that breakout year? And he thought for a second, and he goes, Ed Oliver. And I think that's a player that so many Bills fans want to see that next step. He's been in this system for a little bit. Look, we know how much he struggled without Sarlatule in the lineup last year, but he's a guy that has those big expectations because he was a first-round pick.
Ninth overall.
Like, we haven't been able to see that return quite yet. Here's a guy that's trending in the right direction. But to have the confidence of Leslie Frazier heading into the season, I mean, that speaks volumes about what's expected. We even got to talk to Tremaine Edmonds, a guy who plays behind him, obviously, in linebacker. If he's seen any differences, and he says Ed has put in so much work this offseason, he sees like he feels like he's going to have that big year because of the work that he's put in and how comfortable he feels in that system.
It's kind of that time to put up or shut up. If you're at Oliver, look, the Bills have invested so much into this defensive line. They are continuing to add pieces. Sean McDermott said the other day, he's kind of sick and tired of talking about it, like the rotation and who's going to play and who's not going to play. It's like, hey guys, it's time to actually kind of put the work in on the field. And again, something else that Leslie Frazier went off of as we talk about guys and getting pass rush. We want to see these sacks because the Bills have invested all this capital into it. He said sacks aren't the best way to evaluate how a defensive line is playing. And Pittsburgh is going to start 2 rookies on the offensive line. And so we're like, oh, Leslie, is this defense going to eat? And he's like, hey, they get rid of the ball real quickly.
Yeah, they do.
So that's something to think. So if the Bills don't rack up 5 sacks against rookie guards or rookie tackles, don't hit the panic button just yet. Ben Roethlisberger, Hall of Famer, knows how to kind of deal with those problems. And one other note, interesting, you talked about Sarlatule, not at practice again today, has missed the last 2 practices. So that's something to think about, as obviously the Bills missed him all last year. Flipping to the offensive side, we talked to Brian Daboll, as well as Cole Beasley after practice. What was maybe the most surprising take we had from that? Because we honestly haven't talked that much about the offense because Josh Allen's looked so good and he's making $258 million. But where else was Cole talking about today?
Well, we always talk about how much that offense kind of stepped into itself last year. But now it's about taking that next step, evolving. And we got to talk to Cole Beasley about it because, look, he's another guy. He's a veteran guy. He wants to win. He wants to win big. And someone like him, to have his input, he was just talking about this offense needs to evolve. It needs to continue. And it was interesting because it was also asked, there's so many mouths to feed on this offense. How do you do that? And I think it comes to terms of being confident in what they do and knowing everyone's role. But a step of that is continuing that. Look, Josh Allen had an MVP caliber season last year. We all know that.
Doesn't mean you're going to automatically do it again.
Exactly. How do you continue to take another step down the line and continue that to continue that metamorphosis? Because
big word.
Wow, I know. I'm so impressed with myself. Can't spell it. But that being said, you also have a year's worth of tape. So that's something else to put into play. But no, I think it'll be that next step of continuing to move. And I want to see players like a Gabriel Davis continue to evolve. Because look, I said this to Brian Daboll. I am shocked he's just a second-year guy. He's entering his second season. Look, he only had, 599 yards last season. He had 7 touchdowns.
Right.
But he's a guy that I feel like has done so well in that role, and that's someone I'm expected to take an even bigger step this year.
He has always been a guy that Brian Daboll always talks about, be ready when your number's called upon. You talk about all those mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Gabe may only get 2-3 balls a game. He better catch them because those are going to be big plays for the team. We saw that as well as Cole Beasley. I thought the one soundbite that really stood out to me, he said this is the most talent he's ever seen on a roster, and adding, I've played in some pretty talented teams, and he has back in Dallas. So that is going to be exciting to see, as we know. And like Jenna said, taking this offense to another level. You can't just get to roll your helmet out there and go, hey, look, we were good last year. We're going to do it again.
Yeah.
As well as, getting to do it again. This stadium behind me is going to be packed on Sunday. 70,000 Bills Mafia members screaming their heads off.
Yeah.
And
I do want to touch on one thing before we go to the crowd. I did ask Brian Daboll if there was a breakout player he expected to see from the offense.
Very Bill Belichickian.
Very Bill Belichickian. Brian Daboll smiled, and he said he hopes all of his players have a breakout year. So we didn't forget to ask on the offensive side of the
Jenna's
ball.
asking the hard-hitting questions.
You know me. I got my little notebook out. But no, I will say, first of all, we expect that. That's Brian Daboll in a nutshell. But there are guys that we want to see take that step, and Gabe Davis is one of them.
Final point, obviously, Sunday, 70,000 members will be here behind us at Highmark Stadium. Brian Daboll had an interesting point, and I asked some hard-hitting questions too. Talked about the uncertainties you head into week 1. You just don't know what to expect. There are no tendencies yet throughout this season. And I asked him, is one of those unknowns and uncertainties how you're going to handle crowd noise? And Brian said, we've got really smart fans. He hopes they're really loud when the Bills are on defense and very quiet and polite when they're on offense. So I think that you're going to have to manage that excitement.
Yes.
Because even though it was a playoff game and it was, a home playoff game and all those things last year, it was still only, 7,000, 7,500 people. Yeah, it wasn't going to be what it is here. Yeah. And we have seen, obviously, we're talking years past, but Josh at times admitted that he would get too hyped up. Yeah. That he would get overly excited. Absolutely. Now he's coming in with MVP caliber expectations as well as Super Bowl goals that are very realistic. I mean, they're getting picked nationally a lot of places. They kind of have to
stay within
check
themselves.
That down. Yeah.
They have to stay within themselves. And that is the challenge because of the expectations, the fact that it has been so long, the fact that Bills Mafia has been waiting so long. They're going to be so excited. Yep. But that is one thing that we have seen from Josh. Sometimes that moment gets a little too big. He's just got to be
early
himself,
in his career, yes.
Earlier on in his career.
And it was a lot easier to taper those expectations when you didn't have fans, when you didn't have to ride that emotion.
Real expectations.
That as well. I mean. Also a good point.
But I think that is what Brian Daboll, what Sean McDermott, everyone has been preaching. Leslie Frazier as well. The sun just went behind a cloud, so it got a little dark. But no, that's something that I expect to see a measured Bills team. And I know that sounds probably wild considering what we're expecting in terms of the environment, but you would like to hope maybe there'll be a little nerves, a little jitters, but I feel like this team will settle in and pretty quickly early.
They are the Super Bowl darlings this year. They are getting picked nationally a lot.
Isn't that cool?
But again, they come in at 6.5-point favorites. Yeah, it'll be cool. 6.5-point favorites against, a team that kind of has a bad taste in their mouth from last year. Yeah. I expect to see a hungry Steelers team as well. Bills are 6.5-point favorites. Getting off to a 1-0 start, you kind of need it. Yeah. I can't imagine the Bills dropping. They have 3 out of their first 4 at home. Yeah. We will have plenty of discuss on that on our Thursday show, Let's Talk Football Live. Be sure it'll be here on YouTube as well as in Rochester on 13 Wham and Fox Rochester. Yep. Tons of coverage, as always, is up on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel.
Dan Fetes also has a story coming up on Trey White, and it is phenomenal.
Take the mic.
I literally stole this from you, but I had to get this in. It is a great story about Trey, where he came from, what motivates him, and what he wants to prove. That'll be up on Buffalo Plus, but I had to give a shout out. You did a great job with it.
Thank you. I hope you stuck through the whole of this video. Please sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll have plenty more coverage, as always, as we get through the entire regular season. For Jenna Cottrell, I'm Dan Fetes. Thanks for watching.